Mini episode 975 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris. This is the first in a series of jointly produced webcasts with Gridiron and Hardwood, the excellent new web project being helmed by FDH Senior Editor Jason Jones. Jason has formed an excellent crew of contributors who will be interacting over a period of time with many of the FDH Lounge dignitaries that you have come to know and love. Of course, Jason was the co-founder of the FDH Lounge along with myself, and the co-executive producer for its first year in 2007 before he relocated to Colorado and had to pull back somewhat on the day-to-day involvement. Jason's passion and commitment to football and hoops is unparalleled, and it will be very exciting to see where our jointly produced programming takes us.
Well, I thought you both might want to know, AUSA has determined that the shooting of Jess Timmons was good. A hell of a shot. Would you consider what might have happened if you'd missed?
Darnold flush in the pocket. Now throws on the run. End zone caught. Touchdown.
Darnold. All day to throw it back in the end zone. Touchdown, Stephen Mitchell.
Pressure, Darnold with time and another touchdown to tie it.
Big Sam Darnold touchdown.
Play action. Darnold looking. Throws for the end zone. Bonds. Touchdown. USC.
Darnold. Looking left. Steps up. Throws.
He is passing on fourth down to win a Pac-12 championship, and the Trojans will do just that.
Can't carry a tune. I don't know how to shoot a basketball, and my handwriting is barely legible, but I don't miss.
Hi, what can I do for you?
Call Rick Morris.
Calling Rick Morris.
Technologies.
Hello.
Hey, Rick. Welcome to the show. Welcome back as well to the viewers. We are joined on the Google Home Hotline, if that's what we're going to call it. Gotta love technology. We're going to bring in Rick Morris. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the hardest working man in new media. And we're going to begin to break down a bit of this combine. Winners and losers, top performers, and then we'll get into actual position groups. So, Rick, we already talked about the draft movement and the trade movement and the free agency verbal signings, if you will. So with that sort of on the back burner, and I'll give you your time, of course, to get into some of those. But real quick, I want to start with some of the just off-the-cuff winners and losers. Anybody that jumps out at you that either made a lot of money or absolutely confirmed that they deserve to go as high as we think they're going to go?
Well, there's a couple of guys, and these are the obvious points out there, and I'm sure they've probably been touched upon and will be touched upon. But really, what a sensational combine it was for a couple of different players here, not least of which Shaquem Griffin going out there and putting up the numbers that he did and solidifying himself as somebody who shouldn't be going towards the end of the draft just because of his handicap, somebody who really shows that he can project out as a real difference maker in the NFL. So I'm not really breaking any ground there and talking about him or Barkley. They're the most obvious winners of it. The most obvious loser of the combine, I'm not breaking any new ground here either. Orlando Brown, that was about as bad as it could have gone.
Yeah, I've forewarned the listeners that we are going to somehow circle this back to the Browns. If not, because as you mentioned in our conversations, that for the first time in a very long time, the story of the draft is the Browns, a team, not a player or position. So with that being said, checking the wires, if you will, of fanboys and what the fans are clamoring for, I'm actually stunned at the point that we are still seeing anyone, Browns or otherwise, that are actually angling to get him. Because, look, 40 times are what they are, but it wasn't just a bad 40 time. It were 2 bad 40 times north of 5. If it's 5-2, who cares, okay, if he's good in the drills. He wasn't good in the drills either. He looks slow. His footwork looks horrible. He looks like the kind of guy who's benefited his entire football career from just being bigger than everyone.
Exactly, and I think I could have bench pressed more than what he did.
Well, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but here's what I do remember. The lead guy was Quentin Nelson at 35. The surprise guy was Saquon Barkley, which we'll get to at 29. And if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere in the ballpark of 14.
Yeah, that was pretty bad because, again, all of this, you can look at all the different things about this and say, well, what does that have to do with playing the position? What does that have to do with game day? It's about preparation and professionalism. This is the most important job interview you'll ever have. Absolutely. And if you go in there completely unprepared...
You expect these guys to be at their absolute peak, at their best in this moment. And the problem is with that there's a lot of fans out there that believe that because it's the Underwear Olympics that it doesn't matter and it's just a good moment. But here's the thing. In addition to that, for me, when it comes to offensive linemen, and I learned this the hard way with Joe Thomas, is the 40 time doesn't matter as much. It's the footwork. It's the fact that he's a nimble bear, as they say. I don't believe that if we're going to line up Orlando Brown, and he's a right tackle, he's not a left tackle, but if we're putting him at right tackle, whatever, let's just say he's going to face a Von Miller. I don't think he can slide fast enough to get out there to stop Von Miller from just whipping around and getting past and putting his quarterback on his ass. So my issue is, yes, you expect him to be much better than he was. My bigger issue is, even if he was better, I don't think he's got the footwork to make it. I would not be surprised if he's still on the board at the top of the third round. I think he lost that much ground as opposed to being, maybe the second or third right tackle taken. Now that we've sort of identified the ugly duckling in the room, and we've got Shaquem Griffin, I think the other one that we got to mention, just because it solidifies what I think is maybe the best, most complete prospect we've seen in a very long time, despite what people at the top are saying fan-wise, is Saquon Barkley. It wasn't that he was good. It wasn't that he was prepared. It was that he exceeded expectation at every single step.
He was incredible, and you combine that with the body of work on the field and performances in the history of the combine.
While we're talking about Barkley, there's one thing I did want to mention that there's no way to quantify this that I'm aware of. When you look at the numbers, and I know that's what most people are going to come back to, is he Le'Veon Bell? Is he Zeke? Is he Todd Gurley? I personally believe that he is. However, if you look at, say, Ezekiel Elliott, his stats, his production in the final year at Ohio State, he hit 100 yards rushing every single game with one exception. And those Ohio State fans will remember this was the Michigan State game where, for whatever reason, he just didn't get carries. So if you throw that out, he's averaged, if not gotten, 100 yards in every single game. Now, Barkley is not that. Barkley has had games where he was, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns from scrimmage. He's had games where he was 150 yards rushing. And my one thing I just want to throw out, I could be completely off my rocker here, is I believe that based on what we saw at the Combine, what he proved to be as an athlete, when you consider what they were doing at Penn State, the type of team they were running, I firmly believe right now that the lack of steady production is more a product of what that team was doing in order to win a college football game and less about a person's inability to do it. There are some concerns that maybe he's not Zeke running between the tackles. I think we're going to find out, especially on a decent offensive line, that he's perfectly acceptable there.
Well, exactly. And it is kind of the opposite, and fortunately so for whatever team that drafts him, of what Nick Saban, where he absolutely murders these guys before they even hit the pros. Trent Richardson, anybody? Had with Barkley, the body of work that was outstanding, but of what his tape is, what the combine numbers are. I agree with that. He's the closest thing in this draft, and maybe in recent years, to the complete package. And that's the ultimate. That's a 10 out of 10 when you're at that level.
And that brings up an interesting point, Ricardo. And you played in the trenches.
Oh, yeah.
So my question is, just from a prepared standpoint, what you do when you're facing whatever, if you know you're facing a guy that can beat pretty much every defender to the corner, he's going to run 4.3 when he gets to his top speed. He's probably quicker than anyone you've ever seen. And on top of that, if he's running at you, that's 230 pounds who can bench press 225 29 times, and he's never been hurt. And for those that have never actually seen the kid, he doesn't look like the typical running back, and that's because his lower trunk is thick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So as a defensive lineman or even an offensive lineman blocking for him, that's got to make you, on one side, lick your chops, and on the other side, make you wonder, okay, we might need a little help here.
Yeah. As an O-lineman, you give him just enough, and he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, you give him enough space, he's going to take off, go to the house, run over people. As a defensive lineman, it is a little, I'm not going to say disheartening, but it's one of those things, like you said, where you're like, okay, Can we load the box up a little bit, Coach? Because, you know, this guy's...
My initial thought, and the first thing I see in my mind, is that play where he's just running right off the guard, and the defensive tackle is sealed his block.
Yeah.
And then right then he sees the guy, and he reaches to get him.
Oh, no arm tackles.
Oh, no, not
he's
your
running through
230.
every arm tackle, yeah. You have to, as a defensive lineman, you have to shed your block immediately and be standing in the hole ready to receive that blow, because you're going to take a blow every time.
So, clearly, everyone here is on board with the greatness of Saquon Barkley.
Absolutely.
I really do think, as Rick said, he's the closest thing to a complete package, complete prospect we've seen in a long time. I even tried to quantify as saying he's the best since Adrian Peterson, but here's the thing. He's a better prospect than Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Let that marinate for a second. So we'll dive into more of him when we compare him to the other running backs, because there is a little cliche that's starting to bother me, where people believe that the running back position has been devalued. I disagree. I think it was a string of poor running back drafts. So we'll get into where we believe he goes and where he compares to the other guys. There's a few other guys I really do like, just not as much. But Rick, if we could switch gears just slightly, the wide receivers are an interesting group. And we'll get to the group later, but for me, there's three guys kind of in the middle. I'm not even looking at the first round, but three guys in the middle. We have Jersey, who's one here at the network, who's a huge, albeit protesting the NFL, a huge fan of one of the St. Brown brothers, Equanimous, and I assure you that when the next brother or two comes through, we're going to get a lot of love from Jersey on Amon-Ra St. Brown and Osiris.
Something like that.
Anyway, Equanimous St. Brown out of Notre Dame, 6'4.5", only 210 pounds, but did run in the mid 4.4s. Absolutely looks like he's a sort of Julio Jones, poor man's version, needs to be developed, but kind of guy. Also, the DJs. DJ Shark from LSU, and I've been hesitant on LSU receivers, and I woke up one day and just went, just snap out of it. They get to the NFL and they blossom. So DJ Shark ran a 4.34 40 and looked really good, especially in the gauntlet drill. And then we've got DJ Moore, who's only 6 foot, but Maryland, and some including your boy Steve Smith, absolutely believes he is the best, most complete wide receiver in the entire draft class. So, Rick, of any of the wide receivers, any one guy jump out at you?
Brown kind of does, for the reasons you're talking about with the Julio. I think he can fill out a little bit more, probably without losing much of his top-end speed.
Yeah, I definitely like him. I love the size. I think you're absolutely right. He's 210 now. But everything about his physique says he could easily get to 220. I think 225 is not a stretch if we're looking over the course of, say, 3 years. Because you don't want to just bulk up for the sake of bulking up. We don't want a David Boston situation. because we started off talking sort of winners and losers, there is another name I want to mention, and I was a huge proponent of this guy. I was actually one of the few Browns fans that was like, you know what? Receiver, 4. Don't even care. Now, I've completely changed my tune on that, and that is Courtland Sutton, who is, 6'4", 230 pounds. And when you watch him in games, this is almost the anti-combine conversation. When you watch him in games, you're like, he's insane. He's big, he goes up, he high points the ball, he fights for it. He's one of these Randy Moss in the 50-50 ball category, and that's where it stops. But when it comes to the 50-50 balls, you almost are willing to bet money you don't have that Sutton's going to get it. Here's my thing. I was waiting for the combine because I really wanted to see him run low 4.4s or even break off like a 4.39, 4.38, something that makes you go, okay, yeah, we were right about how good he was. Now, I still think he's very good. My fear is that it's a Laquan Treadwell situation where, despite his ability to catch the ball, he does not have NFL separation. Are you hearing anything, Rick, that supports the idea that Courtland Sutton from SMU could fall because maybe he doesn't have the explosion we might have thought that he should?
I think so, but for that very reason, again, I don't mean to be the turd in the punch bowl here, Landry, and his massive yards per catch average over the course, but you're already looking at guys that don't have the sort of explosiveness I think you sort of need to join everybody else in passing on.
Like, I don't want to beat up on the kid. He's great. He looks the part. It's just that the last time we saw a guy that really caught the ball well and was very successful but ran a relatively slow time, it wasn't embarrassing like Orlando Brown. It wasn't as good as I was hoping for. Sit tight, Rick, for just a few moments. We're going to step out for a minute, collect ourselves, and then we will get right back into it, starting with the one thing that will not go away, the one issue at the top. It's always the issue at the top, but for this particular reason, the vast majority of the narrative seems to suggest that there is no clear-cut number one quarterback in this draft. Rick, when we come back, is going to change your minds about that.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the periodic table of elements.